welcome everybody to the Apprentice Adventure on yet another adventure. But wait for it. This video is going to be a top-notch U-Butte double whammy video where I'm going to introduce to the world my most prized, beloved possession, apart from my two kids and wife of course, and I'm going to film my all-new Insta360 One X2 camera. So stick around and see what all the fuss is about. Welcome to the world, my 1963 Zundapp. This motorcycle was bought by my grandfather in 1963 in the Netherlands, and in English the translation is Zundapp Super Combined the Luxury with Forced Cooling. Sounds super fancy, but in reality it's very basic technology. Now for anyone who watches my channel, it's pretty important to clear one thing up. You all know I refer to my DRZ or DRZ, I cop a lot of slack for naming that wrong, as my second or first wife. But in actual fact, it's my third wife, this here is my second wife, and my real wife's my first wife. I need to clear that up because my real wife's getting a bit upset about the pecking order these days. So now that's out of the way, here's a bit of history about this motorcycle. In 1963, my grandfather bought it, and he used to travel all around Netherlands with my uncle, auntie, father, and himself on it. How would he not know? Because it's only 50cc. It only goes 45 kilometers an hour down a hill these days, and maybe up a hill I get 10 kilometers an hour, so it's got no power, struggles to carry me around, yet it carried 4 people around back in the day. It's done 27,000 kilometers. But the history is that my grandfather put it up in his attic in Holland in the late 1980s, because from what I was told, a lot of young guys were stealing these and trying to do them up. He put it in his attic, and then my father completely forgot about it. Then in the year 2000, when my grandfather passed away, my father went over to Holland from Australia to clean out his estate, and the first thing he saw in the attic was this motorcycle. He couldn't believe it because it brought all back the memories. First thing he did, he took dibs on it out of the family, he shipped it back to Australia, and all he had to do after around 20 years of not starting this vehicle, replace the fuel line, clean out the carby and the fuel tank. First kick and it started. I could not believe it. Now it's my pride and joy. My father passed away a few years ago, and most of you know, watch my channel, I'm pretty fond of my father and got good memories. So it's an absolute pleasure to inherit this motorcycle. When I got the bike, it also came with this side pannier. It's a very old pannier, not as old as the bike, no idea who bought it or why, but inside it I still had the original Dutch owner's manual from 1963, which came in big help for me because I didn't know what fuel ratio I had to put in the fuel tank, which happens to be a 1:25. So I've still got that. For a bit more history, I've still got 3 license plates from Holland, one in 1976, 75 and 74, so that's pretty cool. But on top of that, I've still got 4 in mint condition original registration papers, one as early as 1967. So I think that's pretty cool, just to give a bit more history to the bike. But enough history lesson, let's kick this bike over, show you how it starts, and then I'm going to do some filming with all the mounts that was given to me by Insta360 and test out the 1x2 camera and see how it relates to my channel and adventure riding in general. Right, when you start this bike, you've got to look very professional with the hat on, something my father gave me as well, so I'll always wear that. You've got to throw your leg over, make sure you look pretty tough doing it. You've got to get this key. Now this key is absolutely flat and a pretty poor design. You can start this with a fork if you really wanted to, but it does the job and it's been doing it for 50 plus years. Quarter turn only, not a full turn. Make sure it's in neutral. Lift up the pedals like that. And then you got to hold this choke down and kick her over. First time, look at the power. That is so powerful. And she starts every single time, absolute gem. And then you just turn it off. Now it's important to note whilst riding the Zundapps, you've got to look the part, and that is to look absolutely ridiculous, which is what I'm doing right now. I've got all my new attachments for my camera strapped to my head, testing them out. Everybody's looking at me, I'm looking way too big. The bike's maxed out at 30k an hour up a hill. But you know what, this bike used to carry my grandfather, uncle, auntie and father all at the same time all around Netherlands. Don't know how, maybe it ran better back then, but I'm really struggling to get any sort of speed whatsoever. I'm back in the world's smallest man cave, my garage. I've got my two ladies next to me, wife number 2, wife number 3. I'm going to keep my helmet on because I feel like people are going to take me far more seriously in my review. And I've also got my 4-year-old's daughter in my boot because she insisted it must be in there before she went to bed, so I can't lie to her, so it's staying. But right now I'm going to give you my thoughts and review on the Insta360 One X2 camera. Total disclaimer though, I'm not going to review if it can zoom in on the moon and take photos, if I put it on the sun's surface, does it melt, if I throw it in the deepest ocean, will it compact and explode. I'm not interested in reviewing any high-tech gizmos that's in this because I don't understand it. What I will be talking about is giving my top 5 positives and 5 negatives. I'm going to be completely transparent and how it relates to strapping it to any motorbike, going out there and filming from a basic perspective. None of this high-tech talk. Let's just get to it and see if it does the job. Simple as that. Alright, so let's get started. My first positive, number 1. In this little camera here, they've got something what they call flow state stabilization. I don't know whereabouts it is. I don't know how big it is, if it's a chip or whatnot. But what I do know is that it makes your picture crystal clear and smooth as. So when you're on the motorbike, you're bouncing around, especially if you're on a dirt bike, corrugations, potholes, jumps. This here just smooths out the image so good that you couldn't even tell you went over a bump. So in my opinion, that's the number 1 positive because there's nothing worse than looking at footage when it's all shaky and dodgy, when you can just get something like this and it just makes it perfect. So you cannot go without some sort of stabilization in a camera these days. Positive number 2. This camera here, because it's 360 degree in nature, I think this is my favorite positive to be honest, but whilst I've got it on my helmet, the side of my helmet, even at some points on the bike, it's filming straight ahead and it's filming behind me and it's filming side to side, hence 360 degrees. The amount of times I've been riding along a freeway, an outback road, the bush, whatever it may be, and something in front of me happens like that, and you go past it and you don't even know what happened. This camera, however, is going to be recording when you pass it and when it's behind you. So I think that's absolutely fantastic that the one image is recorded at the same time and you don't have to have multiple cameras or whatnot. Even you could have it on your handlebars and you can film what's happening, and whilst you're talking you can flip between the 2 images once you finish editing. So I think that's absolutely fantastic that one camera does all of those things. Positive number 3, what I call the drone feeling. When I ride, I go from point A to point B. I've got something mounted here normally and I just ride and talk and film whatever I see. Sometimes I'll stop at a campsite and film accordingly. What I do see on YouTube is some awesome videos where they've got a drone following them, they get off their bikes, they probably spend an hour filming. Looks great, but I don't have the time for it. I'm not into it, not at this point in my life. So this little camera here, when you mount it high on your helmet or you mount it to the side of your bike, you can effectively get that drone feeling, not as good as a drone, but a drone feeling and capturing all around you, all in this little camera whilst you're riding. You don't have to get off and get your drone out. So I think that's fantastic as well, and I'm looking forward to using that on my next outback trip as well. Positive number 4, mounts. In my opinion, Insta360 have really hit the mark on getting mounts to just fit onto about every single part of your motorbike that you can imagine. So I'm going to quickly go through all the ones that I've been using, the ones how I think they relate to motorbike riding. This thing here, it's actually a backpack mount and you put your selfie stick up and you film above you. I've repurposed it and I'll put it as a chest mount, but it sits a little bit lower. I've tried it and I love the footage it gives you straight between your arms. It can also film the top of your face and it just gives you that really unique footage of what your arms are doing on the motorbike, but it's not strapped all over your shoulders. So I just sit it here, and to be honest, if you do it tight enough, it's probably going to double up as a kidney belt as well. So that's a backpack mount, or use it like I do on the other side of your torso, facing forward. This one comes pre-made like this, and it's just a simple helmet mount, but unlike other products, you've got to make your own little design and you put all your little pivots in. This one comes pre-done in every way you can possibly imagine, and so you've got nothing to muck around with. You just put it on your helmet and off you go. Handlebar mount. Can really mount to any bit of tubing on your motorbike, but it's a ball and socket joint. So normally the only spot free on your handlebars is the piece that's running vertical. Strap it down, get the angle you want, and start filming. What I do like about this is, once again, once you feel this product in your hand, it's solid, it's not moving. I've had one before, by the end of my trip, that's facing down here, it's no longer tight, my footage was ruined, but this one here, it just feels like it's never going to budge again, so I really like that. Tripod, selfie stick. The tripod here I've used to do my stationary filming, but everything is adaptable and extendable for uneven ground. But because you want to obviously get this higher up, if it can't achieve it with just its own legs, you can just interchange it and screw it into the selfie stick. The selfie stick goes forever, like I was talking about filming the moon before. If you were, this is what you'd use because you'd be almost touching the moon, but then it compresses into such a small product. Once again though, these are just solid. When you feel them, you know what I'm talking about, and they just feel like they're going to last forever, so I think that's super important. Something like this as well, it's just an extension rod, so if you don't have the unicorn mount, which I'm about to talk about, you can just put this on. It just gets that camera a little bit higher to achieve that drone shot. So once again, it is solid though. I keep going on about it, but it's just not going to break. Fantastic. Alright, that brings me to the last one, the unicorn mount. It looks ridiculous on your helmet, can also get ripped off if you hit a tree, but when you're out in the open, you're out in the deserts, it gets that camera that much more higher, and you can also film your face, you can put it right up here, you can film behind you, but that's when you start achieving that drone feeling that I was talking about. So that's a unicorn mount, and they even give you a bigger stick-on surface to handle the extra weight and the extra, I'm assuming, leverages that it puts on the mount down here. So they've thought of everything, so that's fantastic there. And then I can just carry my helmet like that. Not that it's probably designed for that. Positive number 5. This little circle here, it's about the size of a 50-cent Australian coin. Easy to use, user-friendly touchscreen. If you've seen any of my other videos, there's a certain couple of cameras I'm always blowing up about because of the stuffing up or too complicated. This here, up, down, left, right, a couple of options in each screen. Press a button and off you go. Nothing stuffed up on me. It is so easy to use. There's no complicated questions in it. It's not telling you how to make a robot. It just works. So in my opinion, that's absolutely fantastic. Time for my 5 negatives. I want to be completely transparent about the camera. I've got 5 positives. There's plenty more positives, but I've also got a handful of negatives. Now, in my opinion, the negatives are superficial and easy to fix and work around. It would not stop me from buying a camera, but I still think it's important to let you know what I think might be a negative. Negative number 1. Now this is the negative that's not easily fixed if it goes wrong. Because this camera films in 360, the lenses stick out, in my opinion, maybe about 1/2 centimetre from the body. Insta360 given plenty of options depending on what you're doing to cover the lenses. You've also got a lens cover just for storage as well. But I've already dropped this, and luckily I had this cap on, but when the cap was damaged, and I wasn't aware of it until I looked back at my footage, the footage picks up on the damage looking on the outside, and then your footage is sort of distorted. But if I didn't have that cap on, no doubt this lens would have been damaged, and I don't know what it costs to replace, if it's even a replaceable part at all. So you want to be very careful handling the camera and make sure you've always got some sort of cap on, which are cheap to replace, so you can protect the actual lens underneath. So that's definitely something to be wary of. But if you want to film in 360, there's no two ways around it, so you just got to be careful with your camera. So I'll always store it now with this on, unless I'm using it, and then I'll take it off. Negative number 2. This is the first time I've seen this in a camera, but I'm sure there's other brands that do the same thing. But wherever you attach it to, whatever mount, it actually screws on. Screws on nice and tight, no dramas. It's not like a dodgy thread and it's going to be stripped. But my concern is if you're riding along a big trip on corrugations and this is on your helmet, and it just slowly, if you've forgotten to tighten it up, slowly just vibrating, boom, off it goes. Probably wouldn't happen if you're diligent and you're always tightening it up properly, but if you haven't done it up right, I can tell you right now, for experience on those corrugations, things vibrate loose and fall off your bike. So that's a negative in my opinion, but can be easily fixed with, if you want to put Loctite on it, a bit of blue tack on it, or make sure you've tightened it up properly. Negative number 3. You've got a mount for everything. I must give to Insta360, they've covered every aspect of the bike. If you're on the freeway, on the open road, in the outback trips, you're covered. You can do whatever you need with these mounts. What you're not covered for, in my opinion, is going into bush doing enduro riding. There's no way in the hell that I'm going to have this up here whilst I'm in the bush, because the first thing that's going to happen, I'm going to hit a tree branch or hit an overhanging rock, and it's going to rip your head back, or even worse, this is going to fall off and you're going to lose your product. So it's still very usable, but you'll only be using on the side of your helmet, maybe just on a normal mount, but you're certainly not going to be using a unicorn mount or have anything extending out from the motorbike. Negative number 4. Like every camera, Insta360 have also got a microphone adapter, so you can do an external microphone, and that just connects into the side here from where you would charge the camera. And then the microphone just plugs in here. It works, I've tested it, it's fine. My only concern is it's a little bit flimsy. It doesn't actually lock into anything as such. It just feels like if you sort of hit a tree or a branch, that could just fall out, and there goes your adapter. Probably an easy part to replace, but a bit of blue tack around the sides here will certainly make that much more secure. So there's that issue too. Negative number 5. Because this films in 360, Insta360 have created software for your phone or for your computer, free of charge. You just download it, but you have to double edit. So I don't like editing, it takes up a lot of time. I'm not the best at it, I'm the first to admit it, but I need to edit this on the Insta360 programming, and then that saves it onto my computer, and then I need to link all my clips together to produce the video that I'm producing now, for example. So it's only a negative as such that it's more time consuming, but without that software you can't produce the awesome footage that this produces, so it sort of weighs one another out, I guess. So that's it. My top 5 positives, my top 5 negatives. There's far more positives than negatives. If there are any more negatives, they're not even worth mentioning. They're the 5 that I could come up with, but in my opinion, they're easily fixed with a little bit of blue tack here and there, and off you go. The biggest question is, would I use this camera again? 100%. I'll still have my camera mounted to my chin that I always have, but this little camera here is going to be here, up here, on the side of my bike, and I'm going to be finally capturing some drone-like footage without having to get off my bike and playing with a drone. So I'm looking forward to it. Stick around for my next adventure, and I hope you got something out of this video. Thank you.